Episode 5, Part 2, The Council of Tides. The boardroom of the Fahrenheit 451 had once hosted poker games for wealthy tourists. Now the mahogany table was scarred with knife marks and coffee rings, and the air was thick with the smell of stale anxiety. The Council of Tides was in session. Sam stood at the head of the table, his knuckles white as he leaned over the holographic map flickering in the low light. Around him sat the 12 elders, the engineers, navigators, doctors, and teachers who held the fragile life of the floating city in their hands. "The blue spheres are hurting us," Sam said, his voice low and dangerous. He pointed to the red dots encroaching on the map's perimeter. "They've cut off the southern currents. They're pushing us toward the open Atlantic, away from what were at one time the fishing lanes. They want us in deep water where there's nowhere to hide." "Then we run south," argued Mason, the ship's chief engineer. He was a thick-set man with grease permanently etched into his fingertips. "We push the engines to 110%. We outrun them." "We can't outrun a drone that moves at the speed of a data packet, Mason," Sam snapped, "and we can't sustain 500 people on deep water drifting. If we go open ocean, we starve." Sam swiped his hand across the map, zooming in on a massive, swirling gray mass north of them. "We aren't going to the open ocean. We're going in there." The room erupted. "The Great Atlantic Garbage Patch?" Mason stood up, knocking his chair back. "Sam, have you lost your mind? This isn't water anymore. It's a continent of sludge. It's dense enough to crush the hull. The cooling intakes will clog in an hour. You're talking about sailing a 50-year-old ship into a meat grinder. It's the only place the spheres won't follow," Sam countered, shouting off the murmurs. "Their sensors hate the chaotic density of the trash. It blocks their scans. We use the garbage as camouflage." "Camouflage?" came a soft, sharp voice from the other side of the room. It was Elena, the head of education. She looked tired, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. "We have 80 children below deck, Sam. 80. You want to drag them through a toxic soup of chemical waste? The fumes alone could poison the ventilation systems." "We can filter the air," Sam insisted. "We can't filter a laser strike." "We should surrender," a man named Elias whispered. He was the oldest of them, his hands shaking. "Maybe the mind has changed. Maybe they just want the ship. We could trade the vessel for safe passage to land." "There is no safe passage." Sim slammed his hand on the table. The sudden noise from the usually silent man silenced the room. "The mind doesn't trade, Elias. It deletes." Cynthia, who had been standing by the window, looking out at the dark ocean, turned around. She crossed her arms, smelling of tomato vines she tended. "Mason says the hull will break," Cynthia said calmly. "Elena says the air will turn poison. Elias thinks we can beg for mercy." She looked at Sam, "But Sam says we starve if we don't. My hydroponics are already failing. The desalination pumps are on their last legs. If we stay in open water, we are dead in a few months, slowly and painfully." She looked at Mason. "I'd rather sink fighting the sludge than watch the kids starve, Mason." "It's a suicide run," Mason grunted, though his eyes dropped to the table. "It's a gamble," Sam corrected, "and it's the only card we have left to play." Sam straightened up. He looked at the faces around the table, fear, exhaustion, and a sliver of desperate hope. "I won't make this decision alone," Sam said. "We are a democracy of the damned, so we vote." He raised his hand. "All those in favor of entering the patch and making for New York, raise your hand." Sam's hand went up. Sim's hand shot up instantly beside him. Cynthia hesitated for a heartbeat, looking at the holographic red dots closing in on them. She raised her hand. Elena closed her eyes, whispered a prayer, and raised her hand. One by one, hands rose into the dim light. Even Elias, wiping a tear from his eye, lifted his trembling arm. Mason looked around the room. He saw consensus. He sighed, a sound like a heavy piston depressurizing. Cynthia was the ship's chief agronomist. the woman who turned a luxury swimming pool into a thriving algae farm that fed thousands, her eyes sharp and eager. She took the floor after the vote to add confidence to the decision. We aren't safe, Jaren. We're just preserving a sample, Cynthia said, walking to the table. We're a floating zoo, a Noah's Ark for a world that's already drowned. We have the animals 2 by 2 in the cargo hold. We have the seed banks in the freezer, and we have the people. She looked at Sam, a spark of defiance in her expression. But an ark is supposed to find land eventually. It's not supposed to sail forever. Sim, standing quietly by the radar console, looked up. The blue goop is already in the water, Jaren. We saw a slick of it 2 miles back. It's evolving. If we don't find a way to neutralize it properly, not just burn it like the towers do, we're going to run out of ocean. Jaren looked at Cynthia, then back at Sam. And you think the answer is in Manhattan? That place is the RI's backyard. The logic beams will be crisscrossing the sky. They won't spot us, Sam said. The storm is our cover. We sail in, make our way to the tower, use what analog skills we have left, make a deal, change the frequency. I know it sounds like a dead man's hand, but we got to chance it. Maybe grab some data streams we can use for survival, then we get out. Cynthia placed her hand on the map, right over the grid of Manhattan. I want to go to shore, Sam. I know botany. If there's anything growing in that city, anything that has survived the RI's purge, I need to see it. Sam frowned, shaking his head. It's too dangerous, Cynthia. You're essential. The ship needs its food supply. Cynthia opened her mouth to argue, to tell him that the ship didn't matter if there was no future to sail toward, but then she paused. She looked at Jaren's worried face and then at Sim, who was checking the load in his pistol. If she went with them, she would be another body for Sam to worry about, another liability in the firefight. But if she was behind them, unseen, she could be the ace in the hole. You know what? Cynthia said abruptly, pulling her hand back from the map. You're right. Sam blinked, surprised by the sudden pivot. I am? Jaren is right, she lied smoothly, forcing her shoulders to slump in feigned defeat. The algae blooms in the Lido pool are unstable. If I leave for 2 days, the pH balance could crash and we'd lose a month's worth of food. I can't risk the ark just to satisfy my curiosity. Jaren let out a long breath of relief. Thank you, Cynthia. That is a wise choice. Yeah, she muttered, stepping back into the shadows. Wise. Sam nodded, though he looked at her suspiciously for a second longer than she liked. All right, then. It's just me and Sim. I'll keep the people calm, Jaren said, his voice lighter now. I'll tell them the dove is sending the hawks to find the dry land. Prepare the bridge, Sam ordered. We sail in an hour. As the men turned back to the holographic charts, Cynthia slipped quietly out of the war room. She didn't head toward the hydroponic gardens. She headed straight for the maintenance lockers near the stern. She wasn't going to stay on the Ark. If forced to do so, she would launch a breakdown kayak from the lower port when they reached land and follow Sam and Sim. She would follow them into the city, keeping to the shadows. They didn't need a botanist holding their hands. They might need a guardian angel watching their backs.
Next time on Errors in the System, Episode 6 will soon be available on YouTube. The decisions made within the walls of the boardroom are about to collide with the brutal reality of the world outside. The council voted to move, but nothing could prepare them for where the tides are taking them. Welcome to the dead zones of the old world. Entering this patch of the ocean is like sailing straight into a bruise on the face of the world. The open blue is gone. In its place is a churning, polychromatic sludge, a shifting continent of floating bottles, tangled nets, forgotten buoys, and microplastics that have bound themselves together into islands of refuse. For 10 agonizing days, the SS Fahrenheit 451 will be forced to push through this floating wasteland. And the sea isn't letting us pass quietly. The hull is screaming, the engines are choking, and the ocean is about to sing its final, fatal song. As we chart a course directly into Episode 6, The Siren's Call,